Hi class. This video is going to go over kind of how to use the ALEKS calculator. It kind of gives you a little bit of a tutorial on the ALEKS calculator. So what I have done is I have pulled up the ALEKS calculator. This is on a random problem in ALEKS. I have hidden that problem because I'm going to focus on just looking at some of the own problems I've set up. With our ALEKS calculator, the way it's set up is it is going to look the way your problems look on paper. So when you write out your problem, when you write it out in fraction form, when you enter it into the calculator, before you actually total it all out, it should look the same way it looks on your piece of paper. So if you're looking at the ALEKS explanations, and they have a giant formula with all of their inputs, and then they have equals some number, what that means is they took that giant formula, they made it look the exact same into their calculator window, and then they hit enter, and then that's how they got their number. So we're going to go through kind of how to do that and where all your buttons are that you're going to need throughout the class. Okay, so when you use the calculator, you have your numbers, you have our basic four operations, the division, multiplication, subtraction, addition. The division is going to also work as our fraction key. So that division, think of it more like a fraction key. It also works as divide. Those go hand in hand. Along with those, you could also use the square root. You could maybe need to use the cube root. The x to the y, that is your exponent button. So that is for any exponent. The 10 to the x is if you do have a specific base of 10. Log, we'll use that anytime we need to use logarithms, and we'll go over an example of how to put those into the calculator. And then your NCR, NPR, those are going to be our combination and permutation buttons. Those are going to be used in Unit 5, and we'll go over how to enter those as well. Okay, so let's start with, let's say you need to enter a fraction. When you go to enter a fraction, you're going to use your division symbol. That gives you your fraction. When you click on that division, it's automatically going to build that fraction setup for you in your calculator. Once you have that fraction set up, you can move between the numerator and the denominator. So you can move your cursor around. So you can click into the numerator, enter what you want into the numerator, click into the denominator, enter what you want there. You can click outside your fraction, enter what needs to be there. Once you're done, you'll hit your equal sign. So let's say I wanted to take the fraction 5/10, and I wanted to compute it to its decimal form. So I'd put 5 in my numerator, just like I see it on the piece of paper. And then I'm going to put 10 in my denominator, just like it is on that piece of paper. So it's 5/10, looks like my piece of paper. If I needed to make adjustments, I could go back in there, make adjustm/. I'll hit my equal sign, and then it gives me that decimal form, which is 0.5. So then if ALEKS asked you for the decimal form of 5/10, you hit that division symbol, build your fraction, put your numerator and denominator in, and then hit enter. The equal sign is your enter. You have your undo button here. So if you accidentally made a mistake in your fraction, you could undo. So when I click undo, it'll bring me back to 5/10. And then just like before, I can go in and I can make adjustments. The undo button is going to be really handy. So let's say you calculate it and it's getting a different number than what the explanation in ALEKS says. You can go into the undo and you can look at what you entered and make sure that it matches what ALEKS has. If you do hit the undo, you get back to that fraction form. You'll go back down to that equal sign to get your decimal again. Once you're done with that problem, then you hit clear. If you've hit clear, you're not always going to be able to undo as easily. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So just keep that in mind. Once you clear, think of it like you're completely wiping the history of the calculator. Okay, so now let's say you have multiple fractions. So when you have multiple fractions, there's a couple different ways you could approach it. You could do one fraction, click outside of it, build your second fraction, click outside of it, build your second fraction. So if you have 3 fractions, you could build all of your empty fractions. And then you could go in and fill in what you need. So if I was going to do the second problem where I want to take 50/1 times 12/1 times 1/25, I'd build my 3 fractions. I'd put my operation of times in between them, the x. So it has the times in between, just like on my piece of paper. And then I'm going to go in and fill in the values. So I have 50 over 1, 12 over 1, 1 over 24. Looks just like I have it on my piece of paper here. They match. So then I'd hit that equal sign and get out my final answer. The other way you could do it is you could enter one fraction at a time. So you could go in and say, I'm going to enter the first one. I click my division symbol. I build my first fraction. Then I do 50 over 1. I click out of the fraction. So I click off to the side, and that gets me out of the fraction. So my cursor's next to the bar, not next to the 1. I don't want this. I want it out here. So I want to make sure I get it out of the fraction, then type my times, then build my next fraction. And put in my numbers, 12 over 1. Click outside of the fraction again, so my cursor's outside. Type my times. Build my fraction again with that division symbol, 1 over 24. So at the end, it still looks the same, but the steps in between were a little bit different. So you can build the 3 empty fraction shells all at once, or you can do one at a time and fill in your numbers one at a time and then hit equals. You still get that same value. Okay, so now let's say you want to do some exponents. So exponents, this is going to be your x to the little y key. This exponent key, the look of it does change based on the calculator you are using. So if you have a handheld calculator, it could look different. On our keyboard, we use what I call the caret key. It's above our 6. It's that little up arrow. That's the other way it could look. So when you're working in Excel, you see that little up arrow that's above your 6, number 6 on the keyboard. That is the other way to represent an exponent key. All right, so when we do exponents, again, if we click on that, it's going to build us that exponent empty shell. So then once I get that empty shell, I could put in what I want into my exponent. So if I wanted to do 5 squared, I click into the base, type my 5, click into the exponent area, type my 2, and then it's 5 squared. It's going to look just like your piece of paper, 5 with a little 2 up top, and then you hit enter to calculate it. The other way you could do exponents, the second way you could enter it, is you could type the 5 first, then hit your exponent key. When you do that, so I'll show you again, if you type the 5 first and then hit your exponent key, it'll keep the 5 as your base, and then you only need to type in your 2. So that is the second way to do it. Both ways, when you hit equals, they get you that 25. Both ways will look the same before you hit equals. When you are doing exponents, you could have more complicated bases of your exponent. So we could have something like 52 minus 20 in parentheses to the square. So how would we handle that? Again, we can approach it using our 2 different methods. I'm going to go ahead and build the exponent shell first, and then I'll fill in the blanks. So I'm going to click on my x to the y key. In my base, I'm going to type out that 52 minus 20 with the parentheses as it appears. I have to keep the parentheses. The parentheses tell the calculator that that entire 52 minus 20 is the base, and then we can put our 2 in the exponent. And then when it's like this, we can hit enter. All right, I want to look at this one more time just to make comment. When you have it like this, you could be thinking, well, I could subtract 52 minus 20, get 32, and then raise 32 squared. Yes, you could. That is valid. Just keep this process in mind. When we do get into compound interest, the number inside the parentheses does not always end up being exact. So you have to do it all in one step. So it's a good practice to go ahead and enter it all in one step and let ALEKS do all of the calculation for you. That's what we mean when we don't say no intermediate roundings, is that if what's in the parenthesis came out to a non-terminating decimal, so it came out to a really long decimal, you cannot round it before you square. Okay, so you have to enter it in with the parentheses, with what's in and your exponent, and then hit enter. I have an example of that when we talk about compound interest, if you want to skip to that part of the video. Okay, let's talk about logarithms. So logarithms you are going to see throughout ALEKS. Some of them you will calculate, some of them you will not. Some of them will have you just work on simplifying, but some of them you are going to calculate. Your log button is right here. So let's go ahead and click on log. When we click on log, what you'll notice is that you get log and then one blank. When you have a log function, you could see it with that base of 2 and then something inside the logarithm. So in our ALEKS calculator, it doesn't give us the ability to put that small base there. So then we have to do a little bit of manipulation to our logarithm before we enter it into the calculator. So this is called the change of base formula. And what that does, it says that if we have a calculator or just really anything that doesn't allow us to enter in a base other than 10, the assumed base is 10 when it's not entered there. What we can do is we can take this and we can write this out as log of 10 divided by log of 2. So if you have a little number of 2 there, if you have some base there, you're going to take the log of the 10 divided by the log of that base of 2. This is what you'll enter into your calculator. So this is a fraction. So I'll build my fraction shell. In my numerator of the fraction, I'll click on that log button. I can type my 10 in. I'll click into the denominator of the fraction, click my log button, type my 2. It looks like I have in my work. It doesn't look like the original, again, because our calculator does not have that small little box there to put that base in. So we had to rewrite it using the change of base formula. That's what that's called. Tells you to take the log of 10 divided by log of 2. So that's what we entered into our calculator, and then we hit enter. And then that will give us out our answer. All right, and then when we're working with logs, they could get more complicated. So this is a common way you could see logs as your final step before you enter them into the calculator. So when you do this, just remember you're going to make this fraction is what I'm looking at. You're going to make this fraction look the exact same in your calculator before you hit that equal sign. So the first thing I'm going to do is build that fraction shell. Anytime I have a fraction, I like to go ahead and start with that fraction shell. So I'm going to hit my division symbol, build my fraction. And the numerator, I'm going to enter that log of 20, just like we would have done that log of 10. So I do my log, and I put in my 20. Now I'm going to click into the denominator. The denominator has 12 log 5. In between that 12 and that log, there is an implied times. Our ALEKS calculator will do the multiplication for us. So we don't have to worry about putting that star there. We can enter that in as 12 log 5. So I type out the 12, click on my log button, type out the 5. So in my denominator, it's 12 log 5, just like I see on my piece of paper, and then I hit enter. And then that would be my answer. And then you would refer to your ALEKS problem to determine your rounding. Okay, last set of operations, and then we'll get into our financial formulas. So if you want to skip to the financial formulas, you can. Okay, so permutation and combination. We look at these in Excel. So what I've done here is I've set them up the way they look in Excel. So this looks like our topic 5 DQ2 setup, the permute and combin functions. In our ALEKS calculator, this NCR and NPR are our combination and permutation functions. The letter matches the word. C for combination, P for permutation. If we have it set up as permute 4020, to put that into the ALEKS calculator form, it would be that 40, the capital P, 2. So I take the first number, that goes first. I'd put my capital P to denote permutation, and I'd copy down my little 2. The 40 represents the total number of items we have, and the 2 is how many we choose. So we're choosing 2 out of 40 where order matters. When I go to enter this into my calculator, so let's say I click on the button first, it is going to set it up to where the P and then the 40 and the 2 are going to be entered in as little subscripts. So you'll enter in the 40 to the left of the P, 2 to the right of the P, and then hit your equal sign. And then that gives you the permutation. So if you are choosing 2 out of 40, where order matters, you would do the 40 and then the 2. And then hit enter. Okay. When you have this, before you go on to the next problem, make sure you hit clear. So let's say I accidentally forget to hit clear and I notice I'm doing a combination function next. So I go into hit combination. See how it auto inputs that 1560? Let me show you again. I had 1560 on my calculator. I clicked my combination button and then 1560 appeared there. That's because I didn't clear out that 1560. So I want to make sure I clear first and then start my next problem. So if you were doing a comb bin, it's going to work the same way. You are going to change your function to use that combination function. So if you have 50 items total, you're choosing 5 where order does not matter. It'd be 50C5. Combination of 50 choose 5. We entered into our calculator is 50C5. So I would click on that NCR button. I'd click into the left of the C, enter my 50. To the right of the C, I'd enter my 5 and then hit that equal sign. And then that gives you your combination. All right, so let's get into our finance formulas. So I have 3 examples: the compound interest, future value of periodic payments, and calculating the monthly payment. So these are the 3 formulas that are going to be found on that financial formula list in ALEKS. So I've copied down what the formulas look like with their variables, and then I have put in some numbers for the variables. I chose my numbers at random. When you work through the problem, what you're going to do is you will identify your variables, identify the numbers, put them into your formula. Your formula should look the way I have written them out in my maroon color. And then when you enter them into the calculator, you have to enter them in all in one giant step. So that's what we're going to do here. Okay, so let's do these. So let's start with compound interest. I worked through my problem, I identified this is my equation, I've entered in all of my values. So when we enter it into the calculator, we're going to start after the equal sign and we're going to enter in this part. When you enter these in, I find it's best to just work left to right, enter all the parentheses you see, enter all the fractions you see. So I'm going to start with my 1500. I'm going to open that parenthesis. I'm going to do my 1 plus. Here I have a fraction coming up. So before I type in that 0.05, I'm going to go ahead and hit that division symbol, build my fraction shell. I'm going to type in my 0.05, go down to the denominator, type in my 12. Now this is very important. After I finish my fraction, I'm going to click outside of it so my cursor is outside the fraction. You cannot leave your cursor with the 12. It needs to be moved outside. So when you close your parenthesis, it should close off that entire fraction. It should not be in the denominator with the 12. It should be surrounding that 0.05 over 12. And then, so now I have this. Now I'm going to hit that exponent key. In my exponent, I need to do the 12 times 5. So I'll do my 12, open the parenthesis, put the 5, close the parenthesis. So here I have it all entered. It looks exactly like I have it entered on my piece of paper. It looks similar to the formula we had before we entered the numbers in. It has the same shape, the same parentheses, the fractions are in the same place, parentheses are all in the same place. I have everything entered in. Once everything's entered in, it looks the way I need it, I'll hit enter. And then that will give you the final answer. When you get this final answer, you're going to look at ALEKS, look for where they want you to round it, and then at this point, you round. What you cannot do, you cannot piece this apart. So do not do 1 plus 0.05 over 12, write that down, round it, then do your exponent, then multiply. Do not do that. You should have it written out, the entire thing written out in your calculator like this, and then hit your equal sign, and then round according to the directions in ALEKS. All right, let's try the future value of periodic payments one. So I'm going to clear this out. Now I'm going to move on to my next one. Okay, so future value of periodic payments. The first thing you want to notice with this one, it is one giant fraction. So I have a bar that divides it in half. So before, my fraction was nestled inside the parentheses, so I didn't start with my fraction. Now that my fraction is dividing my equation into two pieces, I'm going to go ahead and start by entering in the fraction shell. So I'll start with that division symbol. Once I got that, now I'm going to start entering in everything into the numerator, and then I'll do the denominator. So I'm going to enter in all of this stuff in the numerator, and I'm going to make it look exactly like we have here. So I'll type in my 150, open my parentheses, open them again. So those brackets, the square brackets, are the same as curved parentheses. Those are the same. So when you see a square bracket, that's another parenthesis. So this is a parenthesis, this is a parenthesis. Then I do my 1 plus, build my fraction for the 0.05 over 12. Click out of my fraction, close the parentheses. See how the parentheses are encapsulating my entire fraction. They're not down there with the 12. They're around that entire 0.05 over 12. They are staying in the numerator because we don't have any parentheses in that denominator. There are no parentheses down here. Okay, so I close my parentheses. Next, I do the exponent. So I click my exponent key. I do my 12, parentheses the 5. Now this -1 is outside the exponent. So now I'm going to click outside of the exponent and stay in the numerator. So that's the same idea as when you click outside the fraction. I'm going to click just to the right. So I'll do it again. So if it's up here, I'm just going to click over to the right, but still staying on top of my fraction. And I'm going to keep clicking until I get it in the right place. So if you click out here and it moves down into the middle, click up a little bit. You want to get it sitting in between that exponent and that fraction bar. And then type out your -1, close the giant parentheses. All right, so it's getting big. We can't see it all on our screen together, but we have the 150. We have 2 open parentheses, 1 plus that 0.05 over 12. We have the closed parentheses. We have the 12 times 5 in the exponent. We have the -1 not in the exponent and that giant closed parenthesis. Now I'm going to do my denominator. My denominator, I have 0.05 over 12. So I'll build my fraction again. It's getting a little hard to see on our screen, so use your little scroll bars. Sometimes you scroll the ALEKS page, so use the scroll bars in your calculator. Type in my 0.05. Undo is very helpful here. So notice how maybe I typed my number in wrong. Undo will help me fix just what I typed in without having to do the entire thing. And then remember that you can always go back and click wherever you want. So if you typed all this in, you noticed maybe you made a mistake up here, you can go back and click in and fix your mistake. You can go back to the denominator, click in, fix your mistake. You could go over here, click in, fix your mistake. So remember that even after you've typed it, you can go back, move your cursor there, adjust whatever you need to adjust, make it look like it looks on your piece of paper, and then hit your equals. And then you would get out your final answer. And again, you'll want to round this according to the directions in ALEKS. All right, let's try one more. All right, let's do the monthly payment one. So again, I'm going to clear all this out. So I start with a blank calculator. All right, I look at this one. Let me extend my fraction by here to make it a little bit clearer for us. All right, so this one is similar to the future value periodic payments where we have one giant fraction dividing our equation into two pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and start by building that fraction shell. So the first thing I'm going to do is click my division and build the fraction. Then I'm going to go in and enter this numerator. So I'll type in my 1500, open my parentheses. I need a fraction for in my parentheses. So do my fraction. And then I'll type in my numerator, click into my denominator, type in that 12, click outside my fraction, close the parentheses. So just like before, it's very important to make sure we click outside of that fraction. Now I'll go into the denominator, start with that 1 minus. That is a 1, not a parenthesis. 1. Start with 1 minus, and then my parenthesis, 1 plus, enter my division symbol to build that fraction. Scroll so I can see where I'm working. Enter my 0.05 over 12. Close my parentheses. Again, click outside my fraction, stay in the denominator to close my parentheses. So I'll show you that again. I should have my cursor here. I do not want it here. I do not want it here. I want it here. I want it next to the fraction bar where the fraction bar is cutting my cursor in half. So my cursor is outside the fraction bar would cut it in half. Then I close my parentheses. Now we have an exponent. And in our exponent, we need a negative. So we'll enter in our negative. Negative is that minus, and then 12 and 5. All right, so this is a little big, so let's double check our denominator, and then we'll double check our numerator, and then we'll hit enter. So I've got my 1 minus, my parentheses, 1 plus 0.05 over 12, close the parentheses, negative 12, 5. That looks just like I have it written down on my piece of paper. Same shape, same parentheses, same symbols in the same place. Same thing with the numerator. I have the 1500, the parentheses, 0.05 over 12. This entire thing is taking the same shape. It looks the same as that formula that Alex gave us. And then I'll hit enter. And that gets out our final answer. And again, at this point, you want to look to Alex for your rounding directions. All right, guys, I hope this helps. If you have any issues, the best way for me to help you at this point is send me a picture of your work and then send me a picture of what you entered into the calculator. And then we can talk about what you should be doing if anything is going wrong. So I hope this helps. Reach out if you guys need any help at all.